Hello, hello. I am recording for day 288 through 297 of my 365-day raw suspending disbelief journey. This time I had a really good reason. Well, it's always been a good reason. I mean, in all honesty, but um I have been extremely sick. So the last episode that I did share, I was very, very sick. I was, it came on out of nowhere. Like the Saturday, Sunday, I started wheezing really deeply and I got this cough and I had gone and gotten antibiotics. So that's where I left off before. And I ended up going downhill so quickly that I just was flattened and I could not do sort of bare minimum things in my business at all. And even at home, things really fell by the wayside. I was just super, super sick. My energy was just gone completely. And my cough was so bad. And I had these massive, massive migraines that just made it so that I couldn't even look at a screen. I was super dizzy, like 24/7, could barely stand and walk to the next room kind of thing. And it was just, um, and especially, like catching my breath. So even just walking to the next room was like, I was dying. I could not catch my breath. And even now, I find like even just speaking right now, almost 2 weeks later, I am still, a little short of breath. I've got, um, it is coming back. It is improving big time. Over the last few days, it has been, um, which is not even the part that I'm recording for. So, but the part that I'm recording for, I was like flat. I was just in bed as much as possible. There was a day where I just couldn't function to the point where I took the older two to school and I had left my youngest sleeping. And I got home and I laid back down and she woke up like within moments of me lying down. And I think I got out of bed 3 times that day. And it was just like after that point, it was just a couple of times to feed her and then once to go pick up my son from school. And the rest of it was just, I was completely non functional. And my poor 4-year old, like, thank goodness she uh, is okay a little bit with being self entertained and, things like that. Although she's been a little more needy usually that lately than her norm because of being off of school. Um, all throughout this stretch, she was off school still. The strike is still ongoing with the teachers in our district, and um, so she's just been home 24/7. She's bored out of her mind, and um, I was already getting behind on things, and then I got super sick. So it was a really rough patch. Um, and there was, I mean, that day I slept all day while the kids were at school, and she just had to sort of do her own thing, and she was on screens a lot more than I would like over that couple of weeks. And um there were there was even a couple of days where I didn't take my kids to school because I couldn't even drive. I was so dizzy. It was just like, no, I'm like, you're staying home. And unfortunately, the weather was also so cold that it wasn't even like I could send my oldest just walking to school, and normally she does walk home, but I mean, it was like in the minus 25 to minus 35 range for most of that time. And um all day every day, not just early in the morning, things like that. So it was pretty brutal. And I was not maintaining anything at home hardly. I was really struggling to be on top of anything. And um on the one hand, really giving myself the grace of like, yeah, you're actually super sick, and so you take the time, and I did. But at the same time, there's also the flip side of that, of just how awful the state of my house was by the end of it, and how behind on work tasks I was, and um, all of that. So it's been a bit of a struggle. And I did not have the bandwidth to even serve the clients that are paid clients at this point. I couldn't even show up in my memberships. I couldn't even do anything. I was so, so sick. So this podcast was, or this, verbal journal and reflection was just not even a thought that crossed my mind. It was not even something that I would have chosen if I had been able to think straight about what needed to be done. So, unfortunately, but that's why there's been this big long stretch, and I'm doing it in two chunks just because the last few days of it, I was improving and there was some other things going on and everything. I do believe that this illness was a combination thing. So it was not just me. There were there were several women around the world that I know online who were all dealing with the same thing, very long lasting, and also it overlapping with some things that were going on astrologically and energetically and whatever, all of these things. So that I do believe that it was a combination of what I would call like ascension symptoms, as you are up leveling, having physical symptoms from that, and then on top, and just sort of mixed with an actual illness that was going around. So my son had this cough the week before, had had the fever. I mean, this fever was like knock you on your ass fever. It was on and off for days, to the point where my skin hurt with the level of chills that I had, and I just could not stop shaking, and I was in like crazy hot baths just trying to get the chill out of my bones. And then I would be sweating like crazy, and like it was just up and down, and all the symptoms. It was absolutely crazy. And it really didn't start shifting until I got to the point where I ended up throwing up, and I was on top of that so dizzy that, like, that was one of the days I couldn't take my kids to school. And my cough was so bad that it was just, I could not catch my breath. I could not even walk room to room. I was just in bed. I had my daughter helping out with as many things as I could, my oldest, and I was on the verge of taking myself to the hospital, or getting someone to come and get me and take me to the hospital because it had gotten so bad. So have not been that sick in a long time. And normally my son will get the worst of the worst. Like, he, especially when it comes to respiratory illnesses, it gets in his lungs. He gets so sick. And he did get sick, and he was on antibiotics, but he was getting over it, and he was actually making progress, and I was not. So it was like, I got it and I just couldn't kick it. And I got worse and worse and worse um until the day where I ended up throwing up. Then the next day I started improving. So it was just this, I think, overlap of the physical illness that was getting passed around the community, and then on top of that, having these sort of ascension symptoms going on, and it just really knocked me on my ass. So I stopped. I completely stopped everything. I gave myself that space. But I will say that having basically 2 weeks off um, for the Christmas holidays, and then having 2 weeks off in February was not in the plan. And especially overlapping with my daughter being home now for, I think it's a little over a month. Just feeling very like work does not want to happen right now. So, and even like keeping up at home does not want to happen right now. It's just like, there's so many things coming, and I mean, that's okay. And again, it's this like suspending disbelief that it's all going to be fine, and I am not going to force myself to work through that kind of illness. And so I didn't. But it was a lot. So just reporting on that, I guess. There was really nothing beyond that that I could report on. There was absolutely nothing happening. I could not function. So, um, yeah. So for about 11 days at least, there was this complete shutdown. And then for a few more days after that, which I will record in a separate episode, but that it was still sort of on the mend. And yeah, so that's what I've got for you guys today. Sorry it's been so long, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.